Okay, hello sixth grade. Hope everybody's doing good today. It is Tuesday, the 12th of May. Before we get into our next lesson, which is 16.2, we are going to be doing some background work first. Now, this here we may not get to today. We're probably going to do this tomorrow, so that'll be on Wednesday the 13th, okay? This lesson. But I want to give you some information on what we're going to be learning. Now, what we're going to be learning, and I'm going to put this, it's a 2-page activity, and a lot of the work is done for you, but I want you guys to walk through this with me, okay, because it's going to make sense. Actually, you know what? It's a 1-page activity. I'm sorry. The second page is our answers. So I'm going to try to put this on Google Classroom. If you guys have a chance, I don't know if you have printers at home, if you could print this out, it doesn't have to be in color. It can be in whatever, it can be in black and white. If you have this handy for this lesson, that's going to help. So if you need to go ahead and pause the video and print this, please do that. If you don't have a printer, that's fine. Just follow along with us and do the best that you can. You will need a calculator, and you will need a piece of scratch paper or something to be writing on, okay? So if you have this form, you're even going to need a piece of scratch paper because they didn't give you a whole lot of room to write, okay? So I'm going to give you guys a second tip to do that, and then when you're ready, come on back. And again, if you don't have a printer, don't worry about it, okay? Okay, what we're going to be talking about is what's called mean absolute deviation. Just as a review, we talked about mean, which means the average, okay? You take your set of data, you add them all up, and you divide by how many sets of data you have, okay? So that's finding the average. The median is when you line up all your information, all your data from least to greatest, and you try to find the number that is in the center, the exact center of your data. Going in from the outside, and you work your way in to find the center. Sometimes you're going to have one number in the center, that's going to be your median. Sometimes you're going to have two numbers in the center, so then that's when you have to find the mean within the median, meaning you have to find the average of those two numbers that are in the middle. So you add them up and divide by 2, okay? This next lesson, it can be a little complicated, so before we get into what's in the textbook, I wanted to give you some background information as to where and how you can use this, why this kind of information could be important. We talked about this, I think, yesterday when we were talking about why would you need to know averages and things like that. Well, you see that a lot in sports, which we talked about. So I found this activity that's called the variability in basketball. Okay, so these two line graphs or number lines show the number of baskets that each of these people scored. So Terry scored 8 baskets, okay, total, and Chris scored 8 baskets total, okay? What this means is in this game here, Chris scored 1 basket. Then in the 5th game, Chris scored another basket. And so it shows kind of the number of baskets, or the number of, it's saying baskets scored per game, okay? So this one here, 9 baskets, there was 4 baskets for 9 games, and 4 baskets for 10 games, okay? Now, what we're going to do here is, let's answer some of these questions. So this is where your calculator and scratch paper are going to come into play. Okay, the coach notices that the mean and the median for both players is the same. Can you find the mean and the median for both players? So let's go ahead and do that first. So I'm going to do Terry's first. So for Terry, and I think what they're trying to do is right here, they're trying to say that the score is going to be 9, okay? So for Terry, so to find the median, I need to add up how many 9s and how many 10s, okay? No, you know what? Let's do the mean first. Yeah, let's do the mean first. Mean. Okay, so I need to add up 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9. Then I need to add up the 10s. 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. Let me make sure I have 8 all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. So I'm going to add up all of those and divide by 8 to find the mean. Remember, these do not have to be in order from least to greatest. They happen to be in order from least to greatest, but they don't have to be. That's just kind of the coincidence. So let's go ahead and add up all of those. So if I'm going to add that up, and you're welcome to use your calculator, I'm going to use mine as well. So I've got 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 10, 20, 30, 40. You should have 85. So 85, I hope I did that right. Yeah, because 36 plus 40 is, oh wait, no. 36 plus 40. Oh, it's 76, okay. So you should have 76 over 8. And let's do our division for that. Divide that by 8. And you should have 9.5. I want to make sure that that's right. Okay. All right. Now let's find the median for Terry. Okay. Now remember, the median is the same idea. What we're going to do is try to find the center number. So I can even go back up here and use these numbers here. So if I, first and last, then the next two, then the next two, well, I end up with two numbers in the middle here. If you remember how to do that, I need to add 9 plus 10 and divide by 2. So then you're going to end up with 19 over 2, and you can use your calculator again if you want, or you can just do it on your own if you want. It's going to be 8 something. So 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. Okay, so right here it just so happens that both the mean and the median are the same for Terry. Now let's find out what it is for Chris. Okay, please follow along with me because you guys will have a lesson on this. So Chris has, and I'm going back to my paper here, so I need to add 2 plus 5 plus 8 and 8, 2 8s. Remember, you got to list them both times. 11 plus 13, 14, and 15. And it should be over 8 because they both had 8 total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think what it's trying to say is they, out of 8 games, this is how many points that they scored. So like first game they scored 2, second game 5. I think that's what they're saying. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can figure out what this is. Now I'm going to add them all up. So let's go ahead and add up all the numbers for Chris, and I'm trying to find the mean. And if I'm going too fast, make sure you guys are pausing the video. Plus 8, plus 8, plus 11. Okay, oh, look at that. 76 over 8. Isn't that the same thing that the mean was for Terry? It sure was. So Chris's mean is also 9.5. Okay, let's find the median. So that's the mean. And the median. Okay, I want to find the center number. And remember, there's going to be 2 because if you have an even amount of numbers in your data set, you're going to end up with 2 numbers in the middle. Okay, cover these 2, cover these 2, cover these 2. Oh, I end up with 8 and 9 right here. I mean 8 and 11. So 8 plus 11 over 2, well, look at that. It's the same median as Terry. So looking at this, what we just did, they both have the same mean, they both have the same median, 9.5. So you can say, oh, okay, well, their scores that they have, they're equal. They're pretty much the same. Well, looking at my graph here, that's not going to be the case, okay? If you notice, Terry's are more concentrated. Chris's are more spread out, okay? So what am I going to do in that case? Let's look at number 2. And I think I'm going to use a different whiteboard because I don't think I want to erase that right now. Do you think that Chris and Terry performed equally well during the first 8 games of the season? And it's no, probably not. And the reason why is because it's clear that one performed better than the other one. Okay? Somebody was more consistent than the other. Number 3, what is different about Chris and Terry's performance on the basketball court? Well, Terry's performance was very consistent here. The player always scored either 9 or 10 points per game. Oh, I see what this means, how many points. See, here they said baskets scored. It should be points scored. Okay, that can be a little confusing there. So what they're saying is that in the first game, Terry scored 9 baskets, or 9 points, and then 9 points in the second one, and the third, or whatever. In those games, Terry consistently scored either 9 or 10 points. Chris scored 2 points in one game, 5 points in another game. Two games he scored 8. She scored 8. They're girls, by the way. Okay, that's what they're saying. So hopefully that clarifies it for you. Okay, now I got this off the internet, so this is why there's a couple of little mistakes here. Okay, so we were on 3. Terry's performance was very consistent. Okay, she always scored either 9 or 10 points. Chris's performance was more inconsistent. Okay, sometimes she had a good game where she scored a whole lot of points, and other times, not so much. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to figure out who really is going to be, what's the difference between the two of these. I'm comparing Terry and Chris. So that's where we want to find what's called the mean of absolute deviation for both of the players. Stay with me on this one, okay? So in order to find the mean of the absolute deviation, I want to find the distance that the value is from the actual absolute deviation, okay? So stay with me on this because it can get a little confusing, okay? All right, so I'm going to go back to this one here. So in order to find this, what I want to do is I want to look at right here, okay? I'm going to focus on my mean, okay? 9.5 is what they're saying is the average of what Terry scored per game, okay? And remember, they only played 8 games. So I'm going to rewrite it over here, 9.5. So that's the average or the mean. I'm going to take the data here, and hopefully you have that handy, okay? And I want to see what the distance is or what the difference is between each of these scores to the average, okay? So, and you can use your calculator if you want. So you want to find the difference between 9.5 and 5. I'm sorry, 9.5 and 9. So the difference is going to be, and you can just do it in your head, 9.5 minus 9 is going to be 0.5. So that was for that first set of information, okay? Notice, okay, well, I've got 2 more 9s here, so I need to write 3 more. Okay, this gets confusing, so stay with me. What this is saying is the difference between the average and what she actually scored is 0.5. Okay, and now I need to have 4 of them because she has 4 9s here. Now again, the difference between these last 4 games and the average is also 0.5. Now you don't have to do, say it's negative, you just want to know the difference. Like, how do I get from 9.5 to 10? And you'd have to add another 0.5. So I need 4 more 0.5s. 1, gotta squeeze it in, 2, 3, and 4. Let me make sure I have all 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Now in order to find, now I need to find the average or the mean of this set of information. Okay? Divide by 8. So if I add all of these up, okay, if I have a half and a half, isn't that equal to 1? Yep. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 over 8. Okay. Yes, that looks like a division problem. I mean, looks like a fraction, but let's use this as a division problem. 8 divided into 4. Well, you can't do that. Okay, now you can. So her average distance from her actual scores, here were her actual scores, and the average was only 0.5. And really, you didn't even need to do this math. If it's 0.5 all the way across the board, then that's going to be what it is. So the difference between what her average was and what she actually scored was 0.5. So she was pretty consistent and pretty close to what her average was. Okay, I know this can be confusing. This is probably one of the most confusing lessons in this entire book. So don't get frustrated if you're, not getting it, okay? I'm walking you through this, and then we're going to do the lesson tomorrow where I'll help you with that one as well, okay? You guys don't have to master this information, but I definitely need to expose you to it so that you can say, oh, I've seen that before. Maybe I don't totally understand it. You're going to see it again. I don't think you see it again in 7th grade, but I think you see it again in 8th grade. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with Chris, okay? So here's Chris's numbers. So remember, I've got her list of numbers here. I want to find the difference between the points she scored and the average, or the mean, which is 9.5. So if I have 9.5 take away 2, her first one, and I'm going to write it more over here, should be 7.5. See how far away she is compared to Terry? That's because Terry was more consistent. So we're going to look at each set of the numbers. 9.5 minus 5, you're going to get 4.5 as your next set. 8, I'm going to get 1.5. Now remember, I've got 2 8s, so I need to have 2 1.5s. 11, what is the difference there? You're going to have 1.5. And 13. Okay, that one's going to be a lot higher. So that's 3.5, I think. Yeah. And then for 14, you're going to have 4.5. And finally, 5.5. Okay, and remember, divide by however many sets of data you have. You should have 8. So if you add up all the scores, all of these, go ahead and take a minute to do that. You should get 30 over 8. Let's go ahead and do our division. Okay, 8 into 30 goes 3 times 24, and we want to keep it in decimal form, okay? 6, okay, bring down the 0. Okay, if I'm going too fast, go ahead and pause the video. 56. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Some of you did it on your calculator too, and that's fine. Okay, so basically what this is saying is that Terry's mean, 0.5, mean of deviation, is closer to the average. In other words, on most of her scores, in fact all of her scores, all she needed, she was 0.5 points away from her average. Okay, Chris's, because Chris was all over the board, look at her difference between if she's averaging all of her mean of deviation to her mean, which was also the same as Terry, 9.5. So all of her scores weren't consistent. So she was farther away from 9.5 than Terry was. Terry was a lot closer. She was way far off. So that's where you can see that even though they scored the same amount of points, even though their median and median and mean were the same, you can tell that Terry was more consistent because she is closer to the average number of points that she made, okay? I know this can be really complicated, okay? So what I think we did most of them. I think Chris's mean of absolute deviation was 3.5. I'm looking at number 6 if you guys printed it out. Is it higher than Terry's? And yes, it is. So that means that the number of points that Chris scored was farther away from the mean number of points that Terry scored. So Chris's scores had much more variability. When I say variability, that means Chris was not as consistent as Terry was in making the baskets. Okay, you may need to go back over and watch this video again. Again, don't get frustrated. You're not expected to master this information. I wanted to give you some background, and because every year the kids ask me, well, when am I ever going to use this? Well, you might use it at some point if you're trying to analyze data like this, okay? In the past, I just want to give you a heads up and kind of put your mind at ease. In the past, this has been a high school statistics math standard. Now they're introducing it in 6th grade. So just so that you know, you're being challenged and you're being pushed a little further in this information, okay, for this content. So don't get frustrated with it. Again, tomorrow we're going to work in your textbook on 16.2. And now that you've been introduced a little bit, now you're going to need, it's a lot of math. You're going to need a lot of scratch paper. You're going to need your calculator as well, okay? All right, have a great day, guys, and we will talk again tomorrow. All right, bye. Sacred Heart of Jesus, pray for us.